brought there by Nityananda Prabhu. Mahaprabhu himself was in internal ecstasy, internally absorbed in separation. Krishna. And he was brought to the house of Advaitacharya, and there was a great feast waiting for him. And this feast had so many wonderful and elaborately cooked preparations, but the special ingredient in the foods that were cooked was the love of the person who cooked it. And that was the wife of Sri Advaitacharya. Yeah. So after the food, after Mahaprabhu got there with Nityananda Prabhu and Mukunda, and Haridas Thakur was there, and after a little bit of time the food was offered. It was placed on 3 different plates, as I think, yeah, we'll read that very soon. And the food was offered, and then arti was performed, and then what was supposed to happen next? The food is cooked, the food is prepared, it's put on plates, and then it is offered to Lord Krishna, and then the arti is performed, and what happens next? Yes. Then the devotees will take, the Mahaprabhu was in the mood of a devotee. So there was, upon the stack of boiled rice and all the vegetables, upon the stack of boiled rice and all the vegetables were flowers of the tulsi tree. So there were tulsi manjaris placed there. This is actually how the things were offered. And there were also pots filled with scented rose water for fragrance, because a feast is not only a feast of the tongue, it is a feast of all the senses when it is offered to Krishna. So these different factors are taken into consideration. What is the fragrance, what is how it looks, and of course how it tastes. And there were 3 sitting places where soft cloths were placed. Vasana. Thus Lord Krishna was offered all the food, and the Lord took it very pleasantly. He saw what was going on, the devotion which everything is done, the cleanliness which everything was done, the offerings were made, the devotion which the preparations were cooked, the whole mood and the fragrance, and everything was very sweet and pleasant, because the atmosphere, devotional atmosphere, it is noticeable, it is powerful, and it is pleasing, it is nourishing for the soul, for that person who we actually are. So it is a system, after offering food, to perform Bhoga Arati. Advaita Prabhu asked the 2 brothers, Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu, to come and see the Arti. The 2 lords and all others present went to the Arti ceremony. Who else was present? Yes?
Chandrasekhar and Mukunda?
Not Chandrasekhar, but Mukunda was present, and Haridas Thakur was present, and perhaps Sita Thakurani was present, the one who had cooked, perhaps. But Mukunda was present, and Thakur Haridas was present. So everyone came and saw the completion of the offering, was the Arti ceremony. And after Arti was performed for the deities in the temple, Lord Krishna was made to lie down to take rest. Advaitacharya then came out to submit something to Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Acharya Ase, he came, Prabodhe Tabe Koila Nivedan. He came and made a submission. Sri Advaita Prabhu said, my dear lords, kindly enter this room. There was a separate room. There was the temple room, and then there was a separate room. Please enter this other room, this separate room. And the two brothers, Caitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu, then came forward to take the prasadam. When Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu went to accept the prasadam, they both called Mukunda and Haridas to come with them. However, Mukunda and Haridas, both with folded hands, spoke as follows. Mukunda kahe, that means obviously Mukunda, he spoke first. Mora kitchu kritya nahi sare, that I just have a little bit of something to do, and then I'll take after. So is he telling the truth? Did he have something to do? What do you think? And that's why he wasn't taking prasadam. What do you think? Do you think? Was it truth or excuse?
Excuse?
It appears that it was an excuse, because he didn't feel that it was suitable for him to take with Nityananda Prabhu and Mahaprabhu, because and Advaita Prabhu, they were on a different cat. Actually, in fact, they were all, the three of them were Vishnu Tattva. And when there's different gradations of people in a place, then the atmosphere will, or what is said and what is done, will be dictated by who is present. So they didn't want to intrude on this very intimate exchange between Advaita Acharya and Nityananda Prabhu and Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. And the exchanges will be very unique. They'll be very unique. And of course, these devotees were internal devotees. They knew everything, but still, out of their humility, they wanted to not be present and sort of infiltrate the atmosphere, the intimacy of the atmosphere that between those three personalities. And then Haridas said, Pache, later, Muni Prasade Paimu, to me Yahagari. I will accept prasadam. He said, Haridas said, Muni Papishta Adam, I am completely sinful, and I'm the lowest. Now, how could I take prasadam with you? And actually, Haridas always took this position. And because he felt himself so humble, and therefore he felt himself needy, very much in need of blessings, of mercy, and shelter, because he was so humble. And therefore he was able to always chant the holy names continuously, always taking shelter, always feeling himself in need of mercy. Later I will take one handful of rice, I'll be outside and I'll take, because I don't belong inside. Now, in Prabhupada's purport, Srila Prabhupada explains the humility of Thakur Haridas, and he was not wishing to disturb the social convention of that time, and even during Prabhupada's time, because Haridas Thakur, of course, was born in a Muslim family, and the Hindus and the Muslims, they got along fine, but yet there were differences, there were distinctions. And it's interesting, because one may wonder if there was a Krishna conscious government, what would happen to the serious or the practitioners of other religions. So there would be a friendliness, this is what was taking place there, and there was a congenial relationship, but yet there could be differences. And one of the differences at this time, and probably would take place at other times, is one of the differences is in the eating habits, and therefore they wouldn't eat together in the same place, and that was understood, and it was done not in a everyone just understood what the system was. So you're not there when it's time to eat if you're not a member of that group. So there wasn't any tension, it was just understood what the differences were. So Prabhupada explains this, and although Haridas Thakur explains was that no one really thought of him, oh, he's a Muslim, he should be somewhere. No one thought of him like that, but the common people surrounding outside the social convention, it was honored for the purpose of not creating any societal disturbance. And in the same way, when Mahaprabhu brought Thakur Haridas to Jagannath Puri, and actually this will happen later in the chapter, when it's decided that Mahaprabhu will go to Jagannath Puri to live, Haridas Thakur said that's okay for everyone else, and he was actually crying. He was crying. He said, I can't go to this place because it's a holy place, and people of my birth aren't allowed to come into that place. So what will be my future without your association? He was crying like that. Can you imagine that much faith, that much humility, that much need for association? It is good to consider what is true wealth and what is true poverty. And Haridas Thakur, although possessing nothing on one level, possessed this full humility and full taking shelter of Krishna in the form of his holy names, and therefore he was actually the most wealthy person. He was so wealthy because what he had was for his eternal benefit. What he had he could never lose. It was his treasure, it was his jewels, it was his great fortune. So Mahaprabhu said, don't worry, I will take you. I will take you to Jagannath Puri myself. And then, when Haridas Thakur actually comes to Puri, which happens later in the Madhya Lila, in the 11th chapter, that Mahaprabhu finds a special place for him to live that's secluded, and he instructs him. He instructs him rather than thinking that he was in any way inferior. In any way, he gave him a place to live in a place known as Siddhabakul. Raise your hand if you've been to Siddhabakul. Raise your hand if you've seen the son of Siddhabakul. He's right back there. No, not pointing to you. But we have a tree that's the son of Siddhabakul in the back. And also, interestingly enough, that it's giving many seeds nowadays. There's quite a few. So there can be grandchildren of Siddhabakul. I think in the new temple there should be a bakul tree planted. That's the grandchild of Siddhabakul. And we actually had one very expert organic gardener is helping with Gopinath's garden in the back, and he said that he would sprout them if we wanted. Show us how to do that. Do you need one? You can always take them with you. You can put them in your bag. Keep a bakul tree in your bag, which may be a little problematic, but especially when you're going through airport customs. What do you have in your bag, young man? It's a bakul tree. So Mahaprabhu every day would go visit Haridas Thakur, every day, and he arranged for his food and everything, and every day he would come and visit him. And Prabhupada explains right at the end of his purport, although he was in an exalted position and equal to other great Vaishnavas, he considered himself a papishta, a most sinful man, and adhama, the lowest among men. Although a Vaishnava may be very advanced spiritually, he keeps himself externally humble and submissive. Have you ever wondered about that? That the exalted devotees, they feel themselves, they experience themselves as very fallen and full of so many faults. So what is it that they're experiencing? One could think that, oh, they're just acting in that way for our benefit, but that's not true. They're actually experiencing themselves. But what are they seeing in themselves? They're so exalted. They're so pure. So what are they seeing in themselves? What is it that they're experiencing that makes them feel themselves in that way, experience themselves in that way, and therefore able to fully take shelter of Krishna? What do you think? Anyone have any thoughts on this? Yes?
They're saying Krishna more, and then they're feeling more insignificant, and then they see...
That's more or less, after thinking about this a long time, that was my conclusion too, is that it's because Krishna is so great, when one is in the presence of Krishna, and we are in fact so small and tiny and insignificant, it is the natural consciousness of the soul to experience himself as fallen and faulty and insignificant, and etc., etc. It's just the natural consciousness of the soul. And in this world, we can note very easily that no one experiences themselves like that. They experience themselves so that they actually inside, in the deepest inside, they experience themselves as in a very small, frightened and insignificant way, but they compensate for that through pride and based on false ego. But inside, everyone is actually insignificant, and inside everyone knows that, and everyone knows inside in their internal consciousness that the world is a very dangerous place, and that one day they're going to be forced to leave this world, just as their grandparents and parents and great-great-grandparents all the way back. Everyone's going. So where is our significance? And who's going to even know that we existed in 100 years from now? That we ever existed. So we are precarious in this world. We are dependent on mercy, and we are insignificant. And that doesn't mean lower self-esteem. What it means is that we should take shelter of Krishna. And if we take shelter of Krishna, depend on him and have our consciousness absorbed in thoughts of Krishna, then in fact, then we are in the most secure hands. And then one can be truly bold in Krishna's service, knowing that Krishna is behind us and with protection and everything else. So it's natural. He must keep himself humble and submissive. That's what Prabhupada explains in his purport. So then we could also ask the question, well, sometimes we saw Srila Prabhupada, or we heard that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and we saw Prabhupada acting in the most bold ways. One time Prabhupada was in a park I don't remember which park, but in England. I mean, this wasn't extremely bold, but it was just Prabhupada's mood that he asked one of the devotees to get a twig from like a eucalyptus tree or something, which for many, many, many years, even when he was traveling, he would use those twigs for toothbrushes, to brush his teeth. Eucalyptus has its antiseptic properties, as does neem. So one of the devotees went and cut a twig, and the park attendant came running at them and said, you can't take that. You can't take that twig. And Prabhupada looked at him and said, after everything you've stolen from India, you can't even spare a twig for it. Where did all those crown jewels come from, do you know?
Yeah.
But he couldn't be intimidated by people. One time it was a classic. He was so politically incorrect. One time there was a reporter who asked a lady reporter who was wearing quite a short skirt. You know this one?
I think so.
Okay, you want to tell it or should I?
No.
Okay. But she asked him, why do you have a shaved head? You know, the typical superficial question. So Prabhupada looked at her and said, why do you have a short skirt? And then Prabhupada said, it's better to have a cool head and warm legs. Can you imagine? And then another time some reporter said, somewhere in the Bhagavatam, I can't remember where, but where it says that there are different means of traveling. You can sort of empower a carpet and travel on a carpet, fly on a magic carpet, or you can train pigeons that you can fly, that they can fly, and you can attach yourself to the pigeons. So some lady reporter asked Prabhupada, you know, in your books it says that you can fly by pigeon or magic carpet. How come you came by airplane? And Prabhupada looked at her and said, to be one with you. And one time in Melbourne in 1975, when Prabhupada came to the airport, they had a press conference. And they asked him, and one of the reporters said, what is your name? And he said, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. And he said, what does the A.C. stand for? The reporter said, and Prabhupada said, you will not understand. And the reporter said, no, please tell me what the A.C. stands for. No, you will not understand. No, tell me what the A.C. stands for. And Prabhupada said, Avai Charanaravinda. But he said it so fast that even I couldn't understand what he said. And the reporter said, could you say that again? And Prabhupada said, I told you wouldn't understand. He's very special the way he... And then he would laugh, and people didn't take things, you know, weren't insulted. You know, he would smile and laugh. Anyway, very special person. So, Advaitacharya, after Mukunda and Haridas decided not to come, they declined for prasadam. Advaitacharya took Nityananda Prabhu and Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu within the room, and the two lords saw the arrangement of the prasadam. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu especially was very pleased. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu approved of all the methods employed in cooking and offering food to Krishna. Indeed, he was so pleased that he said, frankly, I will personally take the lotus feet of anyone who can offer Krishna such nice food and place those lotus feet on my head, birth after birth. So he was appreciating so deeply and sincerely the devotion that the food was cooked with, the atmosphere, the offering, and there were so many varieties. So that reminds me of another story that's counter to this, not exactly with Prabhupada. But when we think of all the different preparations that were offered, we can naturally think how wonderful, because I would like to taste them. And the story that it reminded me of, and I don't know if it's really true, but it's funny enough to repeat it anyway. In the early days of the movement, they used to cook big feasts for the deities in Los Angeles, but they didn't know to cover the plate. So when they were bringing it to the altar, so one devotee was bringing the food to the altar, or maybe they were bringing it after. And one of the guests saw this plate, a silver plate with kachoris and samosas and this vegetable and that vegetable and this sweet and that sweet, and it was fragrant, it was beautiful, and everything had flour on it, different colors, a big plate. And that guest said, "Who is that for?" And the devotee said, "That's for the deity." And the guest said, "How long do you have to be here before you become a deity?" He didn't quite get it. But in some way we also think like that to some degree. How long before I get a big plate of prasadam like that, before I'm treated as the central person? But look at Thakur Haridasa's humility, look at Mukunda's humility, and look at the mood that Advaita Acharya and Sita Thakurani cooked in. So many incredible, fragrant, tasty, delicate preparations. So many, so very many. Each one different, each one special. But all for the pleasure of Krishna. Actually for the pleasure of Krishna. So when Mahaprabhu saw that, and then the atmosphere created by that was so exceptionally wonderful and nourishing for the soul. And Mahaprabhu experienced the devotion that everything was done with. And therefore he made that statement. So it's not exactly the food, because you can get food from a restaurant, fancy food from a restaurant, but it's the whole devotional atmosphere created by the bhakti of the devotees, whose simple desire, or the simple desire in their heart, is to do something to please Krishna. To do something for Krishna's pleasure, because the very nature of being in the material world, and the very nature of having a false ego, ahankara, is that I am the center. The illusion that I am the center, and that things should be done for me, at least, although I can't convince anyone else perhaps that I'm the center, at least I should do things for me. And just a whole room full of people who are self-centered just causes chaos and exploitation. The big exploit the weak, the strong exploit the big exploit the small, and the strong exploit the weak. That's the nature of false ego. The very nature of it is exploitation. Because with false ego, we look at the world, we objectify all people and think everything and everyone is meant for me and my purposes. And that naturally, that consciousness, as we could imagine with everyone thinking like that, that consciousness causes so much anxiety, because there's always someone bigger. And it causes so much anxiety that unless I fight, I'm not going to get enough. It causes so much anxiety, and that's the very nature, especially in Kali Yuga, where there's no absolute reference point as to what is proper and what is improper. So that when Mahaprabhu saw the devotion and experienced the atmosphere, the cleanliness, the everything, the fragrance, the everything in sattva gun, and everything offered to Krishna, prepared and offered to Krishna with such devotion, then look what his reaction was. Anyone who can do this in their home, I will personally, frankly, Prabhupada translated, Janme shire dharan tan harat charan. Anyone who could offer Krishna such nice food and I will place that person's lotus feet on my head birth after birth. Wow. So that gives us a standard to strive for. And if we strive in that way, we will experience great humility. Continuing. When Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu entered the room, he saw 3 divisions of food, and he knew that all of these were meant for Krishna. However, he did not understand the intentions of Advaita Acharya. So because there was 1 metal plate and 2 leaf plates, big leaf plates, that one was Krishna, was offered to Krishna, and then the other 2 were offered to Chaitanya Nitai, and all had tulsi. So Mahaprabhu said, "Let us sit down in these 3 places, and we shall take prasadam." However, Advaita Acharya said, "I shall distribute the prasadam. So there will be the 2 of you taking, and I will serve." Because Advaita Acharya, the speciality of Advaita Acharya, although Mahaprabhu considered him an elder and a superior and showed reverence to Advaita Acharya, he only wanted to serve. He is the embodiment of the serving mood. And actually the incarnation of Advaita Acharya, we could say incarnation, the avatar Advaita Acharya is actually Mahavishnu. But then we say that Nityananda Prabhu is Balaram Mahavishnu, but Advaita Acharya is the Sadashiva portion of Mahavishnu. Getting a little technical here, and this is inscribed in perhaps the 6th chapter of Caitanya Caritamrta Adi Lila, that he's the Sadashiva part. And what Sadashiva is, he's the spiritual part of Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva interacts with the material world. And what Advaita Acharya's position teaches is how to spiritualize the material world, how to take the material world or use the material world in such a way that its actual spiritual purpose and spiritual nature is brought out. And that depends on how we deal with the material world, what we get, so to speak. Do we get matter or do we get spirit? Because everything is ultimately spiritual, because everything comes from the Supreme Spirit, ultimately from Krishna. So Advaita Acharya shows how to transform the material energy, which is Krishna's material energy, which he describes in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, and in the Bhagavatam 2nd and 3rd cantos especially, how to transform that into spiritual energy. And that is by Yukta Vairagya, by using everything in Krishna's service. Everything, nothing is bad. Everything should be used in Krishna's service. But it's easy to say that, and Prabhupada encapsulated the principles of Krishna consciousness and the Krishna conscious movement by saying, books are the basis. What's the second one?
Purity is false.
Utility is the principle. Purity is the force, and
Preaching is the essence.
preaching is the essence. And these 4 really are such a unique encapsulation of really how to live in this world, and especially the movements working, the Prabhupada's ISKCON, the Hare Krishna movements working in this world, that utility is the principle. Everything must be used in the service of Krishna. But it's easy to say, oh, I'm using this in the service of Krishna. So therefore you need purity as the force. The actual purity will make it happen. Purity means the sincere using of things in the service of Krishna, not even 95% for Krishna, and at least I should get something out of it, at least 5%, or if not 4%, or maybe I can get 10 or 50, or maybe I can get 90% even. That would be great, or what to speak of 99.99%. And then how do we learn all this? We learn it through the books, Bhagavata. So these 4 really make a wonderful explanation. So Advaitacharya said, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, let us sit down in these three places and we shall take prasadam. However, Advaitacharya said, I shall distribute the prasadam, because his mood was always wanting to serve. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu thought that all three servings were meant for distribution. Therefore, he asked for another 2 banana leaves, saying, let us have a very little quantity of vegetables and rice, because these plates were huge and filled with all the varieties of fancy food. So Mahaprabhu saw that there were tulsi leaves on them, so he thought, oh, this is the prasadam that's been offered to the Lord. How wonderful! Now, let's distribute it. And Advaitacharya, and he said, let us have a very little quantity of vegetables and rice, because he was really in the mood of he had just taken sannyas, and he was really in the mood of a vairagi, a renunciant. And he hadn't eaten anything for 3 days. And now was the time for him, and he just wanted, I'll just take a little bit. And Advaitacharya had a different plan in mind. And let's see, yeah, we have a little more time, so that the next part is very interesting too. So Advaitacharya wouldn't accept that he should just take a little bit, because he wanted to get pleasure in serving, in giving, because he saw that by the mood of someone who is truly a servant is that the one who I'm serving's pleasure is my pleasure. That person's pleasure is my pleasure. So he wanted to really please Mahaprabhu by offering him this prasadam. So he said, just sit down here on these seats, and catching the hands of Nityananda Prabhu and Mahaprabhu, he sat them both down. Now their relationship for years was so intimate, because they had chanted together every night when in Srivasangam and in the houses of the devotees. They had gone to the march to the Kazi's house with the kirtan, and they were all inseparable. So their relationship is very intimate, and that's why Haridas Thakur and Mukunda, they didn't want to interfere, and we shall soon hear of the intimate talks between them, the joking talks. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, when he saw all the food, it was 3 big huge plates of food, he said, it is not proper for a sannyasi to eat such a variety of foods. If he does, how can he control his senses? So Prabhupada speaks about the renounced order of life in his purport, and how renounced those in the renounced order of life should be. So I'll just read a part of it. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not encourage sannyasis to eat very palatable dishes, for the whole Vaishnava cult is Vairagya Vidya, as renounced as possible. One can also say as renounced as is practical. Now what does it mean that the whole Vaishnava cult is based on Vairagya Vidya, as renounced as possible, as renounced as one could practically be? What does that mean? Yes, go ahead.
To use everything for the pleasure of Krishna.
Yes. But what about me? In the sense of, I'm not saying that in a sarcastic way, but this is naturally, and I find it a subtle and tricky point too, because if you're supposed to be always giving and giving and giving and everything for Krishna, does there come a point where you also get something to eat? Or do you also get what you require? And then in the Bhagavatam we even have the example of, in the 9th canto, of King Rantidev, who he was such a perfect householder that before he would eat, he would invite anyone who wanted food. He was the king to come and take food, and so he distributed half the food, and then there was half left and he could eat. But then more people came and he distributed half of that and half of that and half of that, and till there was only one portion left, and then the lowest of classes of person came and said, "I'm hungry," and he even gave him that. So then what do? How long can you go on without, by distributing all the food? So Prabhupada says here to eat, be as renounced as possible, or renounced as practical. So one has to also take as much as one practically needs to survive, and that goes for eating, sleeping, etc., whatever one needs for one's life. But one should basically practice the principle of renunciation as renounced as possible. Now, why is that? And this is the nature of Caitanya Mahaprabhu's movement. That things should be used for Krishna's service, and one should take for oneself what one requires. And this vision, when I was looking at this, I was thinking, now how should I speak about this point? And then I remembered in the very early days of the movement that Prabhupada, one of the first books that he translated was Sri Ishopanishad, and that he, because for probably many reasons, but one of them was the philosophy, and it is really, really nice, and it presents a vision. The Ishopanishad presents a vision about how to see the world. And this vision of how to see the world is opposite to the vision that contemporary society, consumer society, teaches us how to see the world. So when I read the verse Ishavasya idam sarvam, does anyone know that verse? Yat kinsha jagat jagat tena katena munjita madhida kasya sindaram. Did anyone know that verse? Raise your hand if you know it. Bhakti Shastri student. It's a whole vision that this world, everything in existence, the planets, the wood tables, the metal, the microphone, everything is not mine, or nothing is mine. That everything is the energy of Krishna. Everything in existence is the energy of Krishna, and therefore, being his energy, it is meant for his service. So nowadays, nationalism is becoming so prominent, and communalism and family and everything is for my family, or for my country, or for me, or for humanity in whole. But this vision is completely different. That everything belongs to God. It is his energy. And the proof that it doesn't belong to me, that nothing belongs to me really, is that when I die, what do I take with me? Things that are mine, I actually take with me. But I don't take my knapsack, or my laptop, or my tablet, or this or that. So it brings us back to that point. What is true wealth? True wealth is that which is yours, that has value, has the greatest value. So this vision that Prabhupada implanted in us in the early days of the movement can so easily be forgotten. So when I read this, that's what when I read in the Ishopanishad before coming to speak, I read this verse, and it was so refreshing to remember that everything is Krishna's, and to see in that way changes your vision of the world, changes your relationship with other people, changes your relationship with Krishna especially, because you, me, we are also his. Mama eva amsa jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. We are Krishna's. And right now we think ourselves as independent of Krishna, and we're in so much anxiety because of course it's Kali Yuga, so the anxieties are extra special and continuous because of the absence of the mode of goodness, which brings peace. But so much anxiety because we have to fend for ourselves completely in the way that the society is set up. You know, the consumer society is set up is that we're trained to think that my business is the mentality is to get happiness through purchasing and enjoying on the sense level or on the mental level, really. We're trained to think in that way, and it doesn't bring us the happiness we so much and the peace we so much long for. But this vision of everything is Krishna, and I am Krishna's too. And if I live in that consciousness that I am Krishna, not only I'm Krishna's, but I'm Krishna's servant, if I can live in that consciousness, then one will find oneself feeling always protected. If one can live in that consciousness that I am Krishna's servant, and how can I serve you? Allow me to serve you. It is the greatest privilege to be able to serve the all-powerful Supreme Lord. It is the greatest privilege. And if one could actually live sincerely in that consciousness, one's life will be perfect. We saw Prabhupada actually had that consciousness. That one time he went to this stuff. Listen, and maybe we can pick up and speak more about this next class too. But Prabhupada at 26 2nd Avenue, they all the wildest people used to come to attend the kirtans, and they were really lively and spontaneous because Prabhupada was there, and the people were they were lively and spontaneous people. And one of them was a musician of sorts, and he used to play the inner part of a piano, the string part. He used to bring it and bang on it, not the keys, but the inner part of it, like that. So somehow or another, he was going to hold a concert. This person, young man, was going to hold a concert in one of the most prestigious concert halls in New York called Carnegie Hall. And he invited Prabhupada. Did you visit Carnegie Hall when you went to New York? I don't think so either. So he invited Prabhupada to come to the conference to hear him bang on the strings of the piano. And what do you think Prabhupada said? What would you say? What would you say? Well, I'm not sure. No, what would you say? Because you're in an awkward position. He's going to do something, and he's going to, he's inviting you to participate. What would you say? That's a good answer. I don't know. I may be a little bit busy on that day. I'll see, but if I can come, I'll certainly be there. That'd be a good way to get out of it. What would you say?
Same thing, I'll say.
What would you say?
Probably the same thing.
Yeah, well, I just made it easy for everyone. Lily, what would you say?
I'd say maybe some other day.
Yeah, could you postpone the conference for another day? I'm a little bit busy on that day. But anyway, Prabhupada said yes. And he went to the concert, and of course there weren't very many people there. And Prabhupada sat in this very official Carnegie Hall, and the person opened, there was a piano on stage, and he opened it up and started banging on the strings of the piano. And I can't even imagine what it sounded like, but it was certainly very creative and very 60s. And then, so after the first half, after the intermission, he came out into the audience and thanked Prabhupada for coming. And Prabhupada said, but now I won't be able to attend the second half. I have to go back. Thank you so much for coming. So I think it was Brahmananda Prabhu, whoever accompanied Prabhupada. I think they actually went by subway. New York subway. Did you go on the New York subway? What do you think of the New York subway?
I don't like trains. They mostly make me sick.
In any case, one of the devotees asked Prabhupada, they apologized to Prabhupada for having to bring him to that place and having to listen to that kind of so-called music. And they asked Prabhupada, why did you agree to come? And he said, I wanted to see if it would be a suitable place for a temple. So he was actually only looking in that way at things. Okay, we shall stop here. Thank you very much. On this cold and rainy day, you all braved the elements to come. Thank you so much. Any questions or comments? We have a few minutes. Yes.
Does Haridas appear in every incarnation and was there in this cycle of this universe?
Does Haridas Thakur accompany Mahaprabhu?
Every time.
It seems so. There's a service, it's called Brahma Haridas, so it might not be the same individual, but he is such an important part to play. He's the Namacharya, he's the one who teaches by his example how to take shelter of the holy names, full shelter of the holy names, so completely. And Mahaprabhu loved Haridas Thakur so much, and he said, when Haridas Thakur passed away, he said, whatever pleasure I've achieved in this world, that I've experienced in this world, has come from your association. And now you're leaving us. It was like the jewel, the gem of the world disappearing from our vision. And he danced with his body. He personally, it was very touching. Their relationship was so sweet and so intimate, so much love. And that's what you see in the dealings between Caitanya Mahaprabhu and all the devotees. I was just reading in the 15th chapter of Madhya Lila, after being in Jagannath Puri for 4 months, the devotees from Bengal were going back to Bengal, and before they left, Mahaprabhu had an exchange with everyone, each and every one of them, and he praised them or instructed them, but it was just, everything was so sweet. The dealings between Mahaprabhu and the devotees was so sweet and so And the devotees said wonderful things about Mahaprabhu, and Mahaprabhu said wonderful things about them, and so they sometimes asked him questions, and yeah, this 15th chapter is also very special. You know, Mahaprabhu's affection to his devotees, his appreciation for his devotees, is very important for us to understand, because unless we feel the affection descending from above, how will we give ourselves? How will we trust enough to surrender, to serve? Otherwise, the percentage that we want in the relationship will keep on increasing, because we're not satisfied and we don't feel secure that we're being taken care of properly. We won't trust that. And life is really meant for building that trust, because everything that is external to us, that is superficially connected to us, at the last moments of life, they're going to be taken from us. We're going to have to leave them behind. And then what will we hold on to unless we practice in life for that? What will we hold on to will be terrifying. Of course, it's a frightening time anyway, but unless we're practiced on dependence on Krishna and holding on to Him, when we're leaving this world, we won't even have the strength to pick up our hand to reach for our mobile phone, to check our Facebook one last time before we leave, or Twitch. Anyone on Twitch? So okay, Nikunj, what's Twitch? Yeah, likely story.
Twitch.
Yeah, you don't know Twitch?
Twitter?
Huh?
Is it Twitter?
No, there's something called Twitch.
It's a streaming platform.
Yeah. He knows it for professional reasons only. Yes, very popular.
I think so.
Any other questions? Because we have exactly 15 seconds left. Yes.
I'm just a bit confused about. So if
Don't be confused.
If everything is Krishna's energy and it's good for us, so
It's good for us.
so everything that happens is directly or indirectly a blessing. That's part of the plan, from my understanding.
I didn't explain that point.
Well, so everything is Krishna's energy. So does that mean we should just tolerate and accept, or should we still try to fight against what seems unfavorable?
We should try our best to do what's best for our success in life. But when it's clear that we're going to lose, or if it's such an endeavor that one loses one's entire focus in life, then one should accept, okay, what Krishna wants. And sometimes, most astoundingly, we have to wait. We have to wait for the right time. But those questions are hard to answer in the sense that usually the person who asks them is thinking of something specific in their mind and some specific circumstance, but asking the question in a general way. So to answer a specific question in a general way doesn't help so much. You get a general answer, then you have to figure out what in the world I'm going to do with that answer. So, and if you can ask Nikunj later, explain your personal issue for him, and he'll tell you, reveal everything to you. Okay, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.